Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Miguel de Allende. As fellow member Paola Turandot said in her welcome for our Dia de los Muertos service earlier this month, we are a vibrant and diverse community from here in Mexico, the US, and Canada, and elsewhere, I have to acknowledge. We come to explore, as she said, life's intricate tapestry, woven with the threads of our dreams, our hopes, and our shared humanity. I quote her because today, with this service that acknowledges the American Thanksgiving tradition, it's more than appropriate that here too, in Mexico, just as anywhere in the continental US or Canada, to remember and acknowledge that we live on lands that were inhabited for tens of thousands of years by communities that were also rich and vibrant cultures that have contributed to the rich tapestry of humanity. Here in San Miguel de Allende, we remember that we live on the lands of the Chichimeca, the Otomi, and the Nahuatl people. After this service, those on Zoom are invited to stay connected and visit with each other in the main room. Those here in the Aldea can join us for coffee and cookies, and we hope you will introduce yourselves to folks you haven't met before. We like to acknowledge visitors, and I do have one card to let us know of Jose from Gig Harbor, Washington, who's visiting today. We ask, and anybody else that I may not know about, but if you're visiting today, if you would be willing to stand and just let us take a look at you so we know who you are, and we can see you after the service. Thank you so much. Thank you. So during coffee hour, if you see these orange tags, and I'm not wearing mine because it clashes with my turquoise shirt, we are board members, so definitely tap us on the shoulder and make sure we chat with you and welcome you to the fellowship and to San Miguel. A couple of more announcements. The membership meeting, as everybody knows by now because I've sent out a million notices, was moved to this coming Sunday the 3rd, and you can attend in person here or on Zoom. Those who've done it before will know the kind of routine we go through here where you have to exit and then come back in once you've got your membership confirmed. The online folks, we will know that by the way the vote has been set up. You've gotten some attachments in our newsletters and by direct email, so we hope you've read those. The MIR initiative gives you a good overview of what we'll be talking about. And a combined conversation, open conversation about how the budget and the pledge drive and the foundation and all of those pieces will fit together, we hope. Secondly, by changing our date to next week for the membership meeting, we moved the holiday bazaar to December 10th, the following week. If you'd like to sell holiday gifts and donate 20% to the Stewardship Pledge campaign, sign up at the information table, which is off to your left, afterwards, or see Diana Ekezian, who may be, she is here, not necessarily right at the back, so I could point her out, but she'll make herself known. We do record our Sunday services, and you can go to the website of UUFSMA.org, click on the services at the top link, and then go to previous services. While on the website, please check out all the events that are sponsored by our fellowship and the ways you can get to know our committees and who's on them. I forgot to ask somebody to light the candle for me. Would somebody up front like to do that? Thank you, Malcolm. Here we go. Perfect, thank you. In this service about Thanksgiving Reframed, and as we acknowledge our indebtedness to indigenous cultures that have come before us, I'd like to open with words from a late 19th century Native American leader and physician of the Sante Wapiton Dakota tribe in the upper Midwest of the US. He was known to European Americans as Dr. Charles Eastman, but his indigenous name was Oyesa, and that's how his people knew him. He said this about the Indian way of life. Among many things, he's written some marvelous books. I really encourage you to read them. In the life of the Indian, there was only one inevitable duty, the duty of prayer, the daily recognition of the unseen and eternal. His daily devotions were more necessary to him than daily food. He wakes at daybreak, puts on his moccasins, and steps down to the water's edge. Here he throws handfuls of clean, cold water into his face or plunges in bodily. After the bath, he stands erect before the advancing dawn, facing the sun as it dances upon the horizon, and offers his unspoken prayer. His mate may precede or follow him in his devotions, but never accompanies him. Each soul must meet the morning sun, the new sweet earth, and the great silence alone. I invite you to stand if you'd like. We will sing our first hymn, number 108. My Life Flows On in Endless Song. Alan and probably a few others are going to help lead the song. We will sing all three verses.
Standing, please.
For the covenant, thank you. Forgot to say.
For the covenant.
Thank you.
Got it.
So now I invite you to join together in reciting this fellowship's covenant. First in English, and then with maybe Diana in Spanish, or Diego. I will wait and be surprised. Okay. So we'll begin. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning, strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant.
Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
Please be seated. Good morning. I'm the Reverend Tom Rossiello, the minister of this fellowship. This fellowship is a caring community. We want you to know that if you need pastoral care or assistance from a minister, please do not hesitate to contact me. Please email me and we can set up a time to talk. You should also know that our care team is available to be of assistance to you in ways that they can handle them. All that contact information for me and for them are on our fellowship website, UUFSMA.org. We now enter into a very sacred time in our service, a time when members and friends share the joys, the sorrows, and concerns that they are experiencing with their community. If you have a joy, sorrow, or concern you'd like to share in a future service, please email it to me, or if you're going to be here in person, you can write it on one of these cards that the greeters provide you. And if you are on Zoom now and you wish to share today, you may do so by typing your joy, sorrow, or concern into the chat now. As we share each joy, sorrow, or concern, we light a candle, indicating that that joy, sorrow, or concern is held in all of our hearts this morning. In the Talmud, it's written that when we share a joy, the happiness is doubled, and when we share a sorrow, the pain is cut in half. May it be so for our community this morning. We begin with several joys. The first, Jean Degnan is out of the hospital and is resting comfortably at home. Next, we send our congratulations, a joy, to Brian and Carolyn Davis, at whose wedding I officiated on Wednesday. They're new to San Miguel, living here in Los Balcones, and with their son Rio, who I'm hoping they may find a spiritual home with us. Today is a special day for one of our fellowship members. Today is Paula Turandot's birthday, and we all sent her happy birthday wishes. It's a real joy to welcome Joan Wolfe back to San Miguel. It'll be a couple weeks before she is able to be back with us in person, and we are all looking forward to that so much. Also, when I walked in this morning, I saw Pat Laird, who is back in our community and feeling better, and we welcome you back and glad you're doing well. I'm reading a card here. Okay. I actually have more than one person who wants to send healing wishes to Maxine Arnold. One person indicates that she got a virus and has been confined to her room and delayed, and the other one indicates that she's still undergoing tests for issues that relate to a shunt in her head, currently at Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles. So for all those reasons, please hold Maxine in our thoughts and prayers. We light a candle for those in our fellowship who are very private people, but who are experiencing physical or mental health challenges right now, and we pray for their well-being. Our concerns are certainly not limited to just our own community. We light a candle in prayer for the continued ceasefire and safe release of the hostages in the war between Israel and Gaza. Our thoughts and prayers are particularly with all those families who wait for news of their loved one's fate. We also hold in our hearts all the innocent people, especially the children, killed or injured on both sides of this war. Likewise, we do not forget our brothers and sisters in the Ukraine who continue in their ongoing struggle. On this week, where many of us celebrate Thanksgiving, we're going to light 2 candles. The first, we remember the indigenous people who lived and thrived on these lands, be it in what's now Mexico, Canada, or the United States, who at the hands of white colonists were murdered and whose property was taken away. We remember and mourn the genocide and the horrible displacement that took place. Today we reach out to the people whose ancestors these were, to the current people of indigenous roots, with both reparation and respect for the wisdom of their traditions and the inherent worth and dignity of every one of them. At the same time that we acknowledge this difficult history of the holiday, we also take time to light a candle of gratitude and thanks for the many blessings of our lives, and we pledge to use those blessings wisely in the service of others. Let us light a final candle for all those joys, sorrows, and concerns that are held deep in our hearts but remain unspoken this morning. We carry all of them with us into a time of prayer, meditation, or reflection, guided by music, feeling the love of community and remembering that we are here for each other in good times and in bad. And this time, you may come forward and light a silent candle for whatever hope or prayer or concern you are holding upmost in your heart this morning.
I'll invite you at this time to rise and sing, as you're willing and able, our second hymn for today. The words will appear on the screen, and we will sing only verses 1, 3, and 4 if you're going to follow along in the hymnal. It's a very familiar tune to us at Thanksgiving, but it's got some word changes for UUs. Oh, thanks to Alan and Malcolm for giving us their strong voices for these two songs. We're at the time in our service when we remind ourselves why we give to this fellowship. We might say that we give to remind ourselves of how many gifts we have to offer. We might give to remember that we're part of something bigger than ourselves. Some of us give because we believe in music and sacred space, and this is someplace we can find it here on a very regular basis. And as Reverend Tom reminded us recently, we give with faith that together we have enough. Another UU minister, John Saxon from North Carolina, talks about how religious community is like a river, formed from the many streams of our lives that meet and merge and flow to the sea. Our UU fellowship here in San Miguel is a lot like this. As members and friends of the fellowship, we share our time and our energies, our creativity, imagination, and vision, our talents, our skills, our gifts, our time, and the streams of our individual lives to create, as Reverend Saxon says, a river that is both deep and broad, a river that is made of many streams, sustains life, and refreshes the land through which it passes. Your generosity supports all we do here each week, from creating the services we hope you enjoy and can support, and we hope we also create an atmosphere that supports and encourages your personal search for meaning. And there are countless ways we work together through our board, committees, and social activities and efforts in the community to build strong community here in our fellowship and in our beautiful city of San Miguel de Allende. So you are invited to give generously as you can and joyfully as you're willing and able. Your gifts are gratefully received. Thank you.
It's my privilege to say just a few words to introduce our guest minister today, who will come to us by way of video. The Reverend Dr. Susan Frederick-Gray and I were classmates at Harvard Divinity School, and she was an impressive person then and has had a really impressive and meaningful career in our Unitarian Universalist Association. She was the first woman who was elected to serve as our president, and she served in that capacity until last June. Perhaps through one of the most difficult times of holding a faith community together. Through COVID, through the Black Lives Matter movement, through greater diversity, and she did an incredible and compassionate job of keeping people safe at the same time of keeping us connected. Before she became the president of the UUA, she served the congregation in Phoenix, Arizona. And not only did she serve that congregation, but she was really a leader, particularly in the interfaith community, in opposition to the horrible immigrant attacks, both legislatively and by people like Sheriff Arpaio. And she really led many demonstrations, including our 2012 UUA Justice General Assembly, which she helped organize and was held there in Phoenix. She's a compassionate person, a person who really understands our faith, and she has an interest in this community as well. We've talked about it, and today we get her via Zoom, but if we are lucky, we may have her live at some time next year in the future. So please give your attention to the Reverend Dr. Susan Frederick-Gray.
I join you from my home in Cambridge, Massachusetts, the occupied ancestral lands of the Massachusetts people who lived here for at least 12,000 years before Europeans came. Massachusetts people still live in this area, including the Massachusetts tribe at Ponkapoag. I'm Susan Frederick-Gray, President of the Unitarian Universalist Association. I'm honored, humbled, and grateful to be here today and to be with this gathered company. Grateful to be gathered across the distance, together virtually, but connected by unseen threads that hold us together in creation. Honored to be a part of this justice convergence and teach-in, Reframing Thanksgiving. As I begin my message, I want to acknowledge and express gratitude to the Reverend Clyde Grubbs and to Ann Gilmore for their support in researching and helping to craft this message. This truly was a joint effort. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the Day of Mourning tradition, when Frank Wamsutta James called upon hundreds of Indigenous Americans and allies to gather in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and declare Thanksgiving Day a national day of mourning for Native Americans. In 1970, the town of Plymouth sought to celebrate the 350th anniversary of the coming of the Mayflower. Officials reached out to James and asked him to speak as a Wampanoag to the gathering. James wrote his speech based on his extensive knowledge of the impact of white settlement on the original people. The organizers asked to see a copy of his remarks, and when they read what James was prepared to say, they withdrew their invitation. He did not flatter the invaders or excuse the violence with happy talk and the retelling of a fictional story of a Thanksgiving celebration. Instead, he wrote, "History wants us to believe that the Indian was a savage, illiterate, uncivilized animal. A history that was written by an organized, disciplined people to expose us as an unorganized and undisciplined entity." Two distinctly different cultures met. One thought they must control life. The other believed that life was to be enjoyed because nature decreed it. James, who was of course insulted by the rejection, called for a protest. articulating that the day should be called a day of mourning for Native Americans. The demonstration garnered national attention to the growing movement of Native peoples that was making itself known across the country, with actions such as the occupation of Alcatraz, the founding of the American Indian movement, and a few years later, a march across the United States to Washington, D.C. to protest the treatment of the original people. James's censored speech ended with an acknowledgement that even after 350 years of colonization, Wampanoags and other indigenous peoples have kept their spirit and their determination to continue their identities, their communities, and their cultures. He saw that anniversary of the Pilgrims' arrival as a new beginning for the rising of the American Indian, particularly the Wampanoag, to regain the position in this country that is rightfully ours. Those were his words. The National Day of Mourning protest in Plymouth continues to this day, now led by James's son, Munanam James, and the group that Wamsutta James founded in 1970, the United American Indians of New England. This year also marks the 400th anniversary of the landing of the Pilgrims in Plymouth, the 400th anniversary of the arrival of colonizers, which resulted in the enslavement, forced removal, and genocide of millions of indigenous people. As Unitarian Universalists, we have been examining and wrestling with this historic and theological legacy of which we are a part. Many UU congregations in New England can trace their lineage directly back to those early settler communities that had a role in the attempted genocide of Native communities. I can trace my own ancestry back to the Mayflower settlers. We must be honest that our own Unitarian Universalism has been shaped by and steeped in colonialism and the practices of domination since its beginning. Yes, there is something deeply life-giving and liberating about our theology that says we are part of one great family of all souls, that our destiny as humanity is bound together, and that no one is outside the circle of God's love. No one is outside the circle of the Creator's love of the web of life. However, we continue to fail to live into the fullness of this liberating vision. In part, this is because of the limits of our early forebears and the culture and constructs of our tradition. Our early forebears who understood their faith within the context of Christian and European supremacy. What we often describe as white supremacy as a manifestation of the Christian supremacy codified in the late 1400s by papal bull known as the Doctrine of Discovery. The Doctrine of Discovery established that any land not occupied by Christians was available to be discovered and claimed in the name of Christendom. It established that the people of these discovered lands, pagans, non-Christians, savages, as they were called, were to be enslaved and conquered. It posited that indigenous people did not have souls, were not part of the human family. It was this doctrine that formed the foundation for the European conquest of much of the globe, including Turtle Island, the Americas. It also formed the foundation of the United States legal code when it came to indigenous people and their land rights. And it continues to this day to support the ongoing theft and exploitation of indigenous land and violations of indigenous sovereignty. Early Unitarian Universalists understood themselves and their faith within this framework of Christian supremacy. So the faith that we today hold so dear, including the universalism that we so proudly proclaim, did not recognize nor include indigenous people. Today, we still have work to do to free ourselves from the spiritual corruption of these notions of supremacy, domination, and exceptionalism. They continue to operate in our culture, in our congregations, in our own selves. These notions of supremacy, domination, exceptionalism, they feed the continuation of practices and policies that marginalize, denigrate, and exploit people and the planet and our Mother Earth. They are the foundation of the persistent dehumanizing attacks in our society against Indigenous people and against Black people, people of color, migrants and immigrants, transgender people, gay, lesbian, and bisexual people, disabled people, and women. None of us, no one is unharmed by these narratives. No one is unscathed from these systems of domination, even as the impacts are very different depending on the identities we hold. Fundamentally, these narratives have the effect of separating us from one another and from our common humanity and our interdependence. And not our interdependence, not just with one another as human beings, but our interdependence with creation and life itself. The narratives of domination, of supremacy, they separate us from the beauty, the love, and the fullness of this truth of our creation. And so our work is both to make visible these systems, make visible how they operate, and to dismantle these narratives and practices, beginning with how they live in ourselves. If we are truly to be about the work of liberation and justice, love and compassion, then this is our work. And an important piece of this work is examining and debunking the Thanksgiving myth and owning our own religious tradition's role in its creation. In David Silverman's essay, Mourning in America, Mourning, Mourning in America, from the book This Land is Their Land, Silverman traces the history of the holiday. While the Wampanoags celebrated many seasonal Thanksgivings, as Hartmut Dietz shared with us, to celebrate the earth's bounty and the Creator's many gifts, the first Thanksgivings observed by the Pilgrims and the Puritans focused on days of fasting and prayer to thank God for the plagues that had wiped out an enormous number, a huge percentage of the Indigenous population in many villages. Those early Puritans and Pilgrims created Thanksgiving celebrations following battles that wiped out populations of Indigenous people, including the Wampanoag people in Patuxent, which is now called Plymouth. Thanksgivings were also declared again and again to celebrate the slaughter of Indigenous people, such as the Pequot Massacre in 1637. It matters that we know this history. Now, eventually, colonial New Englanders began to celebrate each spring and autumn with days of Thanksgiving. These celebrations, particularly the autumn ones, eventually spread to other areas in the 1800s. None of these celebrations were associated with Pilgrims or with Indigenous people. The first time this association was made was in 1841, when New England-born Unitarian minister, the Reverend Alexander Young, published Pilgrim leader Edward Winslow's only known primary source account of the 1621 Pilgrim and Wampanoag gathering in Plymouth. So Edward Winslow's primary source account consisted of only 4 lines. However, the Reverend Young added a footnote to the paragraph stating that, quote, "This was the first Thanksgiving, the harvest festival of New England." And so the myth began. The holiday we've come to know as Thanksgiving was formally created during the Civil War in 1863, expressing gratitude for the victory of the Union Army at Gettysburg. Abraham Lincoln declared that the 4th Thursday of November should be held as a national day of Thanksgiving. He believed it would foster unity amid the horrors of war. Silverman goes on to show how over time, the association of our national holiday of Thanksgiving with the 1621 friendly gathering of the Pilgrims and Wampanoags served to minimize and erase any national recognition of the centuries of violence and subjugation of Indigenous people across this continent, and minimize the long-standing history of violent enslavement and subjugation of Black people, casting, and these are his words, the so-called Black and Indian problems as Southern and Western exceptions to an otherwise inspiring national heritage. I invite us to hear those words again, the so-called Black and Indian problems as Southern and Western exceptions to an otherwise inspiring national heritage. And to hear those as Unitarian Universalists whose faith grew in New England, separating our tradition from this history of the attempted erasure of Indigenous people and the theft of their lands. That is the culture in which our faith grew. Friends, we are in a season of turning. We are in a season of change. We are in a time marked by tremendous heartbreak and loss with this pandemic, with the conditions of our planet. And yet, I continue to be inspired by all the ways that Unitarian Universalists like you are actively showing up and willing to deeply examine the complicity of our nation's story in hiding the truth and brutality of the conquest of peoples and lands that have been the foundation of the United States history, have been a part of our own history as Unitarian Universalists, and continue to be a part of the continued perpetuation of racial and caste-like systems of hierarchy and domination. Being willing to grapple and know and name this truth and imagine a way forward separate from these narratives of domination is the path to liberation. May we keep doing this work to dismantle these myths and offer a bolder, more powerful yes to the gift of life. Yes to the miracle and abundance of creation. Yes to our responsibility as siblings to the human family and as members of this creation. Yes to the larger liberating change that is possible within us and within our faith communities, and that is critical for our future. And so on this day, let us take a moment and be grateful. To be grateful in a genuine manner. Let us be grateful and let our gratitude flow from our deep and ongoing commitment to justice, to equity, and to peace. Let our gratitude grow from the beauty and the abundance of the earth and the miracle of life. Let our gratitude grow from the opportunities that we have to be together authentically, whether virtually or in person, in the fullness of our humanity. And may we continue to grow our capacity for courage and compassion, for solidarity and justice, for liberation and for humility within ourselves, within our communities, and beyond. This is the work that I give thanks for this day. May it be so, and blessed be.
One world, one people. 1 tribe, 1 nation, 1 flag, 1 flag. stand all together, one voice saying yes we can. Each one, reach one till we pull ourselves up, cause we all one fam. From the rest of the block to the Perry to the Rock, we connect that love. Cause the people with power feel the power of the people when we stand as one.
I got you stuck off the realness. We be indigenous, you heard of us. Max Heaven, the murderer, spreading the love with the water and earth. And the stand against hate, kinda know what the purpose is. We rise, the climate is changing. Signs of the times, it's time to start praying. Pray for the world and community. Prayers are more powerful when we're in unity.
Up today, hungry for a change, new path to take. Can't stay the same, it's been too long. Pointing out who's right or wrong, can you hear me out? All we need is a little bit of love. Take time to heal and it starts with us. Hand in hand, I put my trust in one world, reunite, it's a must. Hold on to hope, we can overload. We can break the code with a single note. Sing out for the world to hear that our time is now, no more for tears. I looked into my son's eyes, a new day in a new light. Lift the veil and dwell so peaceful. Come together, one world, one people.
We got beautiful differences, let me give you a peek. Over 500 tribes, but we all unique. And if we cannot compete to eat, nothing could beat us. Jealousy is more dangerous than diabetes. See this unity? Imagine what it looked like. You would think we would do whatever it took, right? I would do anything for this good life. We could do anything if we unite. Come on.
Young native, you are my savior. Say a prayer for our inspiration. From the block to your reservation. Any color, all my relations. From the basement, worldwide invasion. Every day we're painting our faces. Fighting back but learning our language. Dancing our dances, saying our prayers.
One choice, one earth, one love, one birth. We like to live, we like to live, yeah. One people, we stand all together, one voice saying yes we can. Each one, reach one till we pull ourselves up, cause we all one fam. From the rest of the block to the Perry to the Rock, we connect that love. Cause the people with power feel the power of the people when we stand as one.
Eagle Poem by Joy Harjo. To pray, you open your whole self, to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And you know there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know, except in moments, steadily growing, and in languages that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion. Like eagle that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky, in wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born and die soon within a true circle of motion, like eagle rounding out the morning inside us. We pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty. May this benediction be both an ending and a beginning. I invite you now, as you leave this online space, to do so with an open heart, an open spirit, and a readiness to listen, to pray. Listen with your heart, listen with your body, listen to your spirit and your intuition. Follow it, and for a time, put away your phone, your computer, your worries, your heartache. Follow it to an open door or a comfy perch by an open window. Take this time to disconnect from the technical and industrial world and to connect with the earth, the spirits, and the oneness of all life. May this benediction be both an ending and beginning. May the spirit and the truth that has moved you during this worship service continue to be with you throughout this day and week ahead. And may it spark for you a sacred sense of synergy and flow, like a current you can float in, that you may experience the feeling of oneness with all nations and all life, that you may feel the energy of the breeze, the rain, or the snow, or the birds, the plants, the animals, the earth, the spirits, and the ancestors. In your own way, or in the cultural traditions of your people, make an offering of gratitude to the earth and to these spirits. You are part of them, and they are part of you. Go now in gentleness, in openness, in humility, in prayer.